Two guys, two topics, two opinions.
You talk. Give me two.
This is the split story of the day on 97.5 1280 The Zone and The Zone Sports Network.
43 Suns. Donovan, hard right-hand drive, pulls back on Torrey Craig and hits. Can you say you're back in the bubble, Torrey Craig, and I'm torching you again? Donovan, driving into 8, double team, curls back out with the left hand. He's free throw line extended. He swings back to the baseline. Spida spins in the lane, puts it off the window and scores it. That's remarkable. 38 for Don Booker in the right elbow. Guarded by Don, holding the right pivot foot again. He puts his shoulder into him, bumps into him twice, ball fakes, throws it back out up top to Chris Paul. Chris Paul's left for 3, hit it. Jazz got confused with who's guarding it.
We know what we can be. We know we have work to do as well, but, there's definitely instances where it's like we look at, we didn't really shoot the 3 ball all that well, and I think for us, just finding ways to continue to improve, play through physicality, find ways to continue to play even when we kind of woke up when shots started to fall. If we can continue that same energy in the first half, just being able to play through that and understand that there are going to be nights like this. We haven't shot the ball well the past 2 nights, and 2 totally different games in my opinion. You look at tonight, we were right there, a few rebounds away. And then last game, we were down by 20 at one point. We responded the right way, but we had to do it throughout the course of the game, in my opinion.
Gordon, the Jazz lose in Phoenix, 117-113 in overtime. And the good news is they're back at it tonight against a very tough Portland team here at this building at 8 o'clock. But let's talk about last night's game. You lead us off, Gordon. Where do you want to begin?
Well, you heard there the three-point shooting was a real sore spot for the Jazz. They just could not get much touch from that distance, and that really hurts the Jazz when that happens. I wrote a column about it. It's at sltrib.com if you want to check it out and either agree with me or disagree with me on it. But when the Jazz shoot 11 of 44, they're not going to win. They're not going to win. It's too important to them to be efficient from beyond the arc, and they weren't able to be consistent there, and it really cost them. And when you heard Quinn Snyder after the game, he talked not only about that, but he talked about all the things that lead up to the correct spacing to get those good shots that they're hoping for. And he was kind of disappointed with the Jazz's level of aggression coming out of the gate. And Jake, you and I talked about that yesterday during the show. We thought that they'd be fired up enough to really be aggressive right from the opening tip. And it didn't work out that way. And that was really kind of strange to me that was a reality. The other thing, and then you have at it, Jake. The other thing that really struck me was the disparity in rebounding, 61 to 45, and those offensive boards that the Suns were getting. I think they had like 16 or something, 16 offensive boards to the Jazz's 7. That really hurt them. That hurt the Jazz in a big way. So those are the areas that I circled as being most contributing to the Jazz's defeat. What do you think?
I think you've diagnosed it pretty well. I mean, even if they have an average night shooting from the 3, they win that game. The rebounding, I think, is certainly a concern because they looked small for one of the few times this year where they've kind of looked their size. Does that make sense, Gordon? What I'm getting at there, that they're outside of Rudy and Favors, they're really a small team, and they looked small because Rudy would help on defense, cause a missed shot, and then there was just nothing there to contest those rebounds, and that was a big problem. They've got to get that back dialed in. And I don't know if it's crashed the boards with more bodies or what the solution is, but that certainly was an issue last night. I totally agree with you. I thought Donovan played just a gutsy game, and when he saw that the others kind of didn't have it, he kind of took over. Except for here's the part that concerned me, Gordon, is I think a few players on this team are having a crisis of confidence. And not a cold streak, because I honestly, and we've talked about this enough to know that cold, hot, it fluctuates. Most of the time you return to your average, right? A crisis of confidence is something different. And I'm a little worried about Royce O'Neal in particular. but Bogdanovich a little bit too. Although I thought Bogdanovich found a way to play through it by going to the hoop and making his layups, and absolutely contributed to that game. But there was one possession in the last 2 minutes of the game, Gordon, where Royce O'Neal had a wide open corner three. I mean, the offense worked exactly how the offense should work. It ended up with Royce O'Neal in the corner, which is his spot. You know, we talk all the time about getting to his spots. The corner is Royce O'Neal's spot, and I know he's been cold. I know he's missed a bunch of shots, but he passed it up, Gordon, and he passed it to Bogdanovich, who ended up taking a dribble and taking the shot and missing it. And I know Bogdanovich caught a lot of the heat. But honestly, and Locke mentioned this on the broadcast, that I don't know if Bogdanovich was ready for it. Like, Royce was so open. The fact that Royce passed on that three, I think, startled Bogdanovich a little bit. And then he hesitated, which everybody saw, and took and missed the shot. And maybe Bogdanovich is having that crisis of confidence too. But Royce, earlier in the year, won a game for him by taking that corner three and had the confidence to go ahead and do it. And they need players out there who are willing to take and make or miss those shots. I want to concentrate more on the taking than the making, because Donovan can't beat good teams all by himself, and there was an opportunity for somebody else to contribute. And Royce didn't try and fail, which is something that happens in sports and that we see every single night in the NBA, but passed it up. And that was a real critical point in the game, and they needed that, and he didn't have the confidence to take it. That concerns me.
Couldn't agree with you more in that regard. Sometimes, not in every case, but in a lot of cases, it's better to take the shot and miss it than it is to pass it up. You know, I mean, you just can't do that, especially with an offense like the Jazz's that's built to create those kinds of shots. Yep. And something tells me Royce O'Neal's going to be seeing all kinds of openings to shoot from, because teams are questioning whether he can do that. And he's questioning himself. Let me give you some stats on the importance of the Jazz making those 3-point, or at least living up to the standard they've set for themselves on those 3-point percentages. In the 13 losses the Jazz have had, let me read off the First of all, before I do that, the Jazz, before these last two games, they were shooting nigh on to 40% from three. Okay, so that's what they had set for themselves so far this season. In their 13 losses, they've shot from three 29.4%, 35.3%, 32.4%, 31.8%. This is an anomaly here, 42.6%, 35.3%, 32.6%, 39.5%, 47.7%, 34.1%, 37.5%, 27.3%, and 25.0%. So in only 3 of those games did they shoot up to their average. All the others, they shot mostly well beneath it. And that kills them. We talked about it earlier in the year. Remember, Jake, when we were waiting for the Jazz's defense to come around so it could save them on the nights when they weren't shooting the ball well? Well, I'm just not sure that as good as the defense has been, it's not dominant enough to dependably overcome this kind of diminished accuracy from three. It's too important for the Jazz. It's absolutely incorporated in what they do. And when they don't shoot it well, or as Quinn said last night, if they don't do the things necessary to create the correct spacing so that they get comfortable looks from three-point range, they're likely to lose. That's just the way it is.
I'm not disagreeing here, but I'm adding two. You know, that's true. And the defense pert near won them the game against the second-best team in the league.
Right, but I didn't.
Okay, but it darn near did, and Phoenix gave all it had.
I don't know. Phoenix didn't shoot the ball all that great from three either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, Booker had 35 points, and everybody goes, whoa, 35 for Booker. It took him 31 shots to get there. He went 13 of 31. It took him 31 shots, and Chris Paul tore them apart. Yeah. I don't know if Chris Paul can have very many better games than that. He certainly can't have many more games where he he plays 43 minutes, which was just amazing. And that tells you what Phoenix thought about this game, because they played their dudes. Chris Paul is averaging about, I have to go back and look, but it's like 31 and change minutes a game. And he did not do his rotation in the fourth quarter. So Phoenix was giving it everything that they had. And Chris Paul was really, really good. And the Jazz defense still nearly won it. So I'm not disagreeing with you on the threes. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. But the defense matters, and it makes a big difference. And they nearly beat Phoenix in Phoenix with that defensive edge against a team, by the way, that doesn't play into their defensive strengths because they don't go to the basket at all. And so it limits Rudy's impact too. So
Ayton had a pretty nice game.
Yeah, all on like offensive rebounds though. When Rudy was out of the picture, that was the hard part about all those offensive rebounds. Is it was because Rudy was off doing Rudy things and they couldn't help him out.
Well, if the Jazz can shoot the ball the way they did against the Magic, 26 of 55, they're going to be very successful. If they shoot it the way they have in their last two games, let's see, a combined, 23 of 88? They're not going to win games, Jake. They're not going to win games.
Well, nobody shoots it as well as they did in the Magic game, Gordon. I mean, okay.
So my point is that it's so important for them to do it in a playoff setting when clever coaches are going to be able to dial in and I think sort of disrupt Jazz shooting from the perimeter. And as you pointed out yesterday, okay, well, that might give Rudy some opportunities down low, but that's not enough, I think, for the Jazz to win. So they're going to have to figure this out so that they can get the spacing that Quinn wants, so that they can get the comfortable shots he wants, and they can gain that confidence that you were saying is sort of eroded away a little bit.
Yeah, I just think it's so much more nuanced than they make their threes or don't make their threes.
Well, I mean, nothing is absolute, but certainly.
And I think the confidence.
The statistics I just gave you are fairly convincing. If they shoot their normal percentage from three, they win, and if they don't, they lose.
How many teams in the NBA is that not true for?
Well, it's especially true for the Jazz because they put up more attempts than any other team.
Yeah, they've built around the percentages of making their threes.
It's more important to the Jazz than it is for most teams.
Maybe, I mean, if you make your shots, that's what I hate about the make or miss league argument.
That's not what I'm saying.
If you make
Jake,
your shots,
you
win.
know what I'm saying. The
lose.
Jazz stress creating 3-point shots for their team. And so they lead, they're number one in the league in attempts from three. 43 a game. More than anybody else. They did have the leading percentage of hitting threes, but lately they've dropped down to fourth now. So,
well, how about why? Is there some common thread between those games that they're missing the threes, or did they just leave it in the locker room?
Well, according to Quinn, they weren't spacing the floor properly. That's what he said after the game last night.
You think that's been the same in all these games that they're... I don't know. I'm asking. Do you think it's the same in these games where they're shooting in the 30s? I mean, listen, any team that shoots in the 20s from three is going to have a tough time winning games unless they're completely built around an inside-out philosophy like back in 98 or something. So, but in those 30s when they've struggled, is that it? Is it spacing, do you think? Is there a type of defense? I mean, it's got to be more nuanced than they just left it in the locker room. That's my point.
Yeah. And I would agree with that. I do think there's more to it than that. It's not just, oh, wow, we were cold tonight. Oh, wow, we were really hot tonight. There are things involved in it. And I just took note of what Quinn said last night, that the spacing was proper. The only way for us to really know that would be to go back and rewatch each of those losses and see what was going on. But I have a suspicion that it's not just whether you're hot or not. There's a whole process that leads up to it. And, the other guys have something to do with it, too. Some teams are a little better at defending the three than others.
Which Phoenix is very good. And on defense, Phoenix is very good, and they deserve credit there where credit's due. They've got a bunch of long, rangy players that close out like crazy. I mean, that's got to be, if not the best closeout team in the league, it's got to be pretty close. I mean, there were times last night when the Jazz offense really worked, and the ball popped around, and the dude was just covered because Phoenix really played it well, and they played that pressure-style defense, which helped the Jazz get off to such a slow start because the referees just decided, speaking of leaving it in the locker room, the referees were going to let them play. They were going to leave that whistle on the sideline, and I think it took the Jazz a minute to get adjusted to that. But when they did, and the bench unit came on, they led after the first quarter. So, I mean...
You said something earlier, Jake, that I think is really important and impressive. If we're going to look at a positive from this game, Donovan Mitchell's one tough mother now. You know? I mean, his plus-minus was he minus 11, but the 41 points on 16 to 35 shooting, he was not hitting his outside shot. He found other ways to contribute, and he missed that big shot. He missed a couple of really big shots, and, he was doing everything he could to lift his team up when it needed him. And he just did not get enough help.
All right, we'll have much more Jazz conversation as the show goes along, so stay tuned. We'll also talk about the Masters. I believe, who's on with us today? BT? Bob's on with us today. Right now, let's see, three-way tie for the lead with Justin Rose, Matsumura, and Harmon. What's Harmon's first name?
I don't know. It's Matsuyama, though.
What did I say?
Matsumura.
Matsuyama. Excuse me. Thank you, Austin.
But I don't know who Haran is. So
all right. So
earlier in the day when I checked the leaderboard, man, there were a whole lot of players who are not from the U.S. of A. Doing pretty well. I don't know whether that's flipped. I got to check it, but I don't know. For all the USA fans out there, it was looking rather bleak early on.
Well, Damian is in town. Damian Lillard. And the Trailblazers practiced yesterday, Gordon. And I know this because as I would try to get into the building, I was about, tackled and tased and all that and told that was not my entrance for the day, which was pleasant.
Wait, you had to reroute through a different way?
Oh, man, Gordon, you haven't been in the building for a while, have you?
No.
We have 3 different entrances that we're allowed to take at different times depending on what time it is and what is going on.
I see.
Wait till you get your tattooed barcode.
But here's the thing. They are very serious about, well, I'll put it this way. They are more serious about what entrance you take depending on what's going on in the building. And if an MVA team is even within the same county as the premises, then they're very serious about security, which rightfully so. I'm not complaining. I'm just, complaining a little bit. That's okay. I had to walk around the building. It's fine. I was holding like 30 pounds of food. Anyway, point being, I'm very well aware that the Trailblazers practiced yesterday, and we're able to be in town. I kind of wonder if Damian Lillard went up to Ogden. He usually does when he has an extra day, but you never. Well, he probably couldn't, right, because of protocols and all the restrictions that they're currently under. So maybe he usually finds a way to contribute. I'm sure he did. It's one of. It's pretty cool that our community's tied to Damian Lillard, and he seems to appreciate that as well, which is awesome. But he and his team are coming in, Gordon, and Portland made a big trade at the deadline, acquiring Norman Powell, who I thought was really the perfect acquisition for them and was going to make their team a lot better, and I think it did. And Damian Lillard now has C.J. McCollum back, of course, who had some injury issues earlier in the year. They trade for Powell. Nurkic, I know, is questionable for tonight's game, but he's back and healthy or healthy-ish. And I'll tell you what, when they have their pieces, Portland is really good. And Lillard, to his credit, kept the ship afloat until they could really figure out how to put together a complete roster, and I think they have. This is going to be a brutal game for the Jazz tonight. It's going to be tough.
Yeah, coming back off the road loss last night, but this team, your emphasis on defense, Jake, is really applicable for this game tonight.
Well, yeah, and
for all the reasons you just said,
and Portland doesn't play any of it, so that's nice.
But those Jazz perimeter defenders are going to really have to do their jobs, and we'll see how much energy they have in that respect, because this is a team that can absolutely light you up. And now with the addition of Powell, I mean, he's another very good. What's he averaging? 20 points a game? Something like that?
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're surrounded by good scorers.
All right, just some updates on the roster front. Mike Conley is not listed on the injury report, so he might play tonight. Usually he's been sitting out either the front or back end of back-to-backs, but Jordan Clarkson, due to a right ankle sprain, is doubtful tonight against the Blazers. So maybe Conley decides to forego a night of rest if Clarkson's unable to go.
Yeah, that Western Conference race is tightening up, so Jazz need every victory they can get.
All right, we'll have more Big Show coming up. Stay tuned, 97.5 and 1280 The Zone.